So, this video took me a hot bit to make because recording everything took forever, but it's here, and I'll be discussing all of the Bungie Halo campaigns in a nonsensical way because I feel like it. If you actually want to know how I feel about these games, I do love Bungie's Trilogy. I just don't care enough to talk about them seriously because that wasn't fun enough for me. So instead, I'm not going to. I played through every campaign at least twice, however I had to record everything while playing the Master Chief Collection because I don't have a capture card. I'd prefer to play the originals on screen, but oh well, I'll work with what I have. Oh yeah, there are these games too, but I don't feel like talking about them right now. And oh god, get that shit away from me! So, let's begin. At the beginning, the Master Chief gets up from bed and needs a weapon and his girlfriend, because the Covenant decided to be a bitch pretty early. Captain Keyes, however, has found the sacred onion ring, and decides to crash land on it with Chief landing in an Captain Keyes, however, has found the sacred onion ring and decides to crash land on it with Chief landing with an escape pod. The onion ring itself has a lot of mystery behind it. How does an onion ring have an elaborate structure system? Was there a person who had a planetary-sized fryer to produce such a masterpiece of design? But don't worry, these questions are indeed solved as the Forerunners built it, and have left a pretty bad secret hidden underneath. Well, we don't want to talk about that right now. Oh yeah, Keyes gets captured and we have to save him, and his AI sucks when you try to escape, and he might get killed a lot when you're playing on Legendaries, so, fuck you. So anyways, Chief makes it to the control room of the Onion Ring, and Cortana gets a wealth of information, and freaks the fuck out because Big Bad is about to happen, and you go to see what the hell happened. You go there and the Covenant is acting very strange, running away from the structure, locking off doors. Oh god, there's blood. Like, a lot of blood, unless you're playing on the shitty anniversary graphics. Oh, what's this, a helmet on the floor? Well, let's see what's inside.
What is that?
Where's that coming from, Mendoza?
I don't... There! Mira!
Hold still! Hold still! Let him have it! Sergeant, we're surrounded. God damn it, Jenkins! Fire your weapon!
There are too many,
Don't
Sarge!
even think about it, Marine.
Oh, this is local! Here, Marine.
Jenkins!
Oh god, okay, well that's certainly something. Master Chief is then surrounded by the Bent Penis Horde and must escape. However, in the midst of running through the swamp, Chief is whisked away by the floating nut. The nut then tells the Chief that you need to get the key to the onion ring that he doesn't just teleport you to for some reason, but oh well, the onion key is apparently important to activate the ring's defenses to combat the bent penises. Chief then fights through the worst level in the game. Fucking rocket flood. You then get the onion key and go back to the control room. It is then revealed that the onion key doesn't necessarily activate defenses. Instead, the ring will wipe out all life within a very large proximity, and that's pretty bad. The nut is not very happy about Chief's girlfriend being in the system, so now he wants to fight you too. As you venture out, everyone is fighting each other, which isn't very nice. Chief then pulls out some big brain moves and fucks over the nut by destroying his microwaves. Chief then has to save Keyes again, goddammit Keyes, but as you fight through the chaos and get to the captain, you're too late. Because Keyes has become a super penis, or is about to become a super penis? I have no fucking clue. And you have to put him out of his misery. The Bent Penis Horde really didn't like that. And as the Chief tries to escape, there is a lot of angry Covenant with big bad weapons. Luckily, Chief jacks one of their Banshees and flies back to the ship that Keyes crash landed at the beginning of the campaign. The goal being to blow up the onion ring because fuck this shit at this point. The nut from earlier is intent on stopping you, so you have to blow up the reactor yourself. You then nope the fuck out of there on a super cool action escape sequence, and conveniently find a conveniently loaned spacecraft that conveniently no one else has thought to use. That's pretty convenient. After the escape, Johnson grabs an elite's ass, and the onion ring blows the fuck up. Exhilarating. Also, he doesn't actually remove his helmet. Sup?
Today we're going to be talking about Halo 2,
The best one.
in the series. This review will have two main points of discussion, the story and the gameplay. The latter specifically referring to legendary difficulty, because if you play anything lower, you're a bitch. Seriously though, if you genuinely think playing on this difficulty is in any way acceptable, you should be crucified. Let's get started. Halo 2 picks up right where we left off in Halo Combat Evolved, as Master Chef destroyed the Sacred Onion Ring, and in a familiar way, the tutorial treats the player like a mentally deficient retard.
Okay, let's test your targeting first thing. Please look at the top light. Good. Now look at the bottom light. Alright, look at the top light again. That's it. Now the bottom one. Okay.
On the bright side though, we get told a lie that is so great even the prophets would be jealous.
Your new armor shields are extremely resilient, very efficient.
Speaking of which, unlike the previous game, Halo 2 spends a large portion of its story showing the side of the opposing force, more specifically the Covenant, a society of multiple alien races such as the Wartworts, ancient worms, dinosaurs, slaves, dickheads, actual dickheads, and monkeys. With that knowledge, we are introduced to the race's space empire, as the elite supreme commander, Thal Vadum, is on trial for committing various homosexual acts with Sergeant Dude at the end of Halo. Oh, and for letting Chief destroy the ring, but who the fuck cares about that? Thal Vadum, who I will be referring to as Arby for the rest of this, tries to explain how his forces were no match for the rocket launcher flood, but the phallic fucks are having none of it. As punishment, they ordered Donkey Kong's long-lost cousin, not Donkey Kong, to attempt electric shock therapy to cure Thal's gayness. In the meantime, we see humanity celebrating as not Captain Keyes gives medals to Sergeant Dude for defying death on several occasions, and Miranda Keyes for being related to Captain Keyes, I guess? Also find this logic to be stupid, the Covenant decides to continue what they do best. Dying. Yeah, sorry, but without these guys, the Covenant counters in Halo 2 are a joke, even on Legendary. Aside from that, the first mission is nothing major, just fighting your way through the station with the occasional waves of enemies you have to endure. However, soon after fighting off a boarding party, you are informed that the Covenant are planting bombs within each station to destroy the defenses from within. You are then tasked to locate and disarm the bomb. You then locate and disarm the bomb. Master Chef then rides the bomb to destroy Covenant's ship, before returning to Miranda and Dude. Chef is then greeted with that one line that got overused by Redditors. Next up is the mission Outskirts, where we start off in a Pelican flying through Muslim Town as we hear the voice of all players who attempted this stage on Lasso.
Regret, regret, regret.
It's at this point where we encounter the giant enemy Spider, who promptly shoots down our Pelicans with its super mecha death beam. Master Chef then suffers from a hangover as Mrs. Lady tells him to wake the fuck up. He then wakes the fuck up with some Marines led by Sergeant Dude, where they're informed they have to do the mandatory holdout section of the level right away. It's nothing too special at the beginning, just grunts led by elites with the reintroduction of the Jackals. In addition to the ones wielding shields, we now have a new variant, the Jackal Snipers. An enemy design which has made the blood and soy of casuals boil for years to come. Seriously though, to all you crybabies who whine about being one-shot by them, you're also capable of doing the exact same thing to them with a well-placed headshot. What's that? The reaction time is too fast? Then what the fuck do you call this? My advice, get good you filthy casual. Anyways, after dealing with all the waves, you then have to deal with a pair of hunters, which unlike the hunters in Combat Evolved, are an actual threat with the exception of their plasma grenade weakness. Chef then proceeds down to town, and has to face even more snipers along with some stealth elites, who go down with less of a fight than the Jackals do. So after fighting his way through the alleyway, he enters one of the only two places in the entire campaign where the flashlight has a purpose. For like 5 seconds. Once he exits and takes out some enemies that are being dropped off by a phantom, Chef is then tasked with a relatively peaceful drive along the beach. That is until the locals start shooting at him and his buddies. Fortunately, we're in a Warthog, so it should be a relatively safe trip. It gets blown up by a grunt. Anyways, after borrowing a ghost from an elite who is no longer living, Chef then drives to a small building where with the power of the OP Halo 2 rocket launcher and sniper, he's able to clear out the ghost with relative ease. He then travels through the tunnel to clear out some rats. After killing some Covenant and running over some dumbass, we encounter a new vehicle, the Shadow. We then blow up the Shadow. After destroying all the shadows before they can regroup, Chef snipes everyone and drives off the tunnel to the next mission. After exiting the tunnel full of rats, he then encounters the giant rat.
That makes all of the rules.
Luckily for us, Sergeant Dude tells us it's already time for the mandatory tank section. As for the tank section, well, you're in a tank, and it isn't Halo 3, so it's pretty fun. Just driving across the bridge, blowing up everything purple in sight. The only thing that could possibly be a threat is the Banshees that attack you from behind, but with the ability to shoot both the main cannon and the turret, they're pretty easy to shoot down. After entering yet another tunnel, we have to sadly abandon the big boy and continue on foot. In this tunnel, it's just a small group of elites and grunts being supported by jackals. While making your way forward, there are 2 stealth elites hiding in a corner to sneak up on you. Luckily for me, I've played against Sarah, so I know how to deal with campers. After exiting, you are then faced with 15 jackal snipers. Fun. At this point, I normally prefer bringing the Gauze Hog with me, but this retard pissed me off, so I just let him get molested by the jackals, so I guess I'm going on foot. After dealing with all the ghosts and the wraith, it's on to the next section, where you have to deal with even more ghosts and wraiths. Nothing much to say for this section aside from this. After using their toys against them, I move up the building where the far less homosexual Sergeant Dude is telling his teammate to stop being a little bitch. We then see the giant enemy spider take down a tank. Hetero Sergeant Dude proceeds to get pissed off and tells us it's time to kill the giant enemy spider. We then proceed to fire down on the Scarab's troops with a bunch of rocket launchers and snipers laid around randomly for some reason. Anyways, after boarding the Scarab's platform and killing the pilots inside, it blows up. For some reason. At the beginning of this mission, we are put into the perspective of Mr. Wartward himself, the Arbiter, where the prophets are displeased at the fact the electric shock therapy didn't cure his homosexual tendencies, seeing as he has no issue with 2 muscular apes talking about how delicious he looks. To redeem himself, the old farts task him with killing an equally homosexual man, whose name I refuse to try to pronounce. We are then sent off with a squad of Spec Op elites and grunts led by Shipmaster Artas Vadum. Once we get dropped off, we make our way into the facility. At this point, the Shipmaster tells us just how utterly worthless our armor is.
Your armor system is not as new as ours. Your camouflage will not last forever.
Anyways, we go in and start slicing some elites and grunts. After this area, Arby takes a lift down to the Heretic Seraph. We are then told to open up the door to let reinforcements in, which are then promptly gunned down. After all the Heretic's troops are dead, we give chase to the Heretic, making our way through various rooms filled with enemies. Once Arby catches up with him, the Heretic orders his troops to hold you off while he flies off in a Banshee. After taking out his troops, we get into a Banshee of our own, and my favorite section of the campaign begins. While you could just go to the right and skip this whole segment, I prefer not being a bitch and actually play it. So we proceed to engage in multiple dogfights, along with taking down the anti-air grunts on the ground. At the objective, we have to get out of the Banshee and proceed into the facility to hunt down the Heretic. However, once entering, the Shipmaster explains to the Arbiter that he smells like shit and gives him a can of Axe. Soon after, the heretic unleashes the flood to halt our progress as he makes his way to his seraph. The shipmaster once again abandons us cause he's a bitch and we have to make our way towards the elevator. Fortunately for Arby, it's possibly the easiest section as it's just a bunch of flood with small arms and sentinels. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that Guilty Spark teamed up with the heretics so the sentinels are fighting for them. I say that here and not earlier because I already recorded the previous segment and I genuinely don't give enough of a shit because these allergies are killing me. Arby then makes his way through the flood and the heretics' forces and once again catches up with him. He locks the door. This is fucking stupid. Arby in his repair skill of 100 offers to cut the cable holding this section of the facility, causing it to plummet and forcing the heretic out of hiding. Arby once again corners him. He flies away. I want to die. You follow him again, but unlike last time, this segment is utterly pointless as it's just us flying back to where we started. Seriously, look how short this is.
What lunacy! They'll never escape this maelstrom and abandon me. Wait, the hangar. There was a Seraph fighter inside. Obviously, you know what to do.
Now we chase him through the same way we went earlier. He gets Guilty Spark to talk to Arby about the truth of the sacred onion rings, but being a colossal dumbass, the heretic chooses to shoot him instead of letting him listen. This starts up the first boss fight in the series. I say boss fight, but it glitched halfway through and he just stood there for the rest of the fight letting me shoot at him. As the battle concludes, the monkey takes Spark and the mission ends. Next up, we are back in the perspective of Master Chef. After following Regret's ship, we find yet another onion ring. Determined to kill the regretful dickhead, Miranda sends the chef and some ODSTs to secure a landing spot. After doing just that, the chef gets a brand new car and proceeds to drive for a total of 30 seconds, until it turns out that the bridge is down. After redeploying the bridge, Sergeant Dude figures it's already time for the next tank section. Once again, it's a tank section, so it's pretty much impossible to die unless you somehow can't aim with a tank. At the end of the tank segment, we get a supply drop with a sniper that has more than enough ammo to deal with the enemies ahead with little challenge. That is until you get to this part. Now don't get me wrong, Jackal sniper encounters are definitely fun, but what ruins it is some dickhead decided that randomly spawning drones here would be a fun idea. After hiding in a cave and picking off the drones that spawn in, you should be able to freely deal with those snipers without any more interference. Okay, after that cancer, we make our way out of the area into this building, which starts off the next mission, but not before fighting off some honor guards, which are essentially just reskinned elite majors. After we exit, we enter yet another sniper arena. Nothing special really happens here aside from this. After this, Master Chef decides to travel to his next destination on a magic carpet ride. After dealing with the locals, he makes his way into a building. Notice how I keep jumping from first to third person? I did, and I don't give a shit, because I haven't slept in 48 hours. He then rides an underwater elevator which flies into a new building. Captain Jack then proceeds to shoot people waiting for the elevator because he's a dick. After gunning down the defenseless civilians and letting his heart decide, he rides yet another magic carpet ride. Captain Jack then proceeds to sink the enemy battleships, one of which has 2 flying wart boys and like 500 fuel rod grunts. He gets off and fights his way into the final building where he encounters one of the prophets, Sundowner.
I'm fucking invincible!
Sundowner is different from the other prophets, mainly because he sees war as less of a way to purge the filth from the galaxy, but more as a way because he thinks war crimes are funny. He is a fairly simple boss, all you have to do is cut his shields off, which makes him very angry. He uses a phantom for air support and occasionally calls on a few sword elites to help mount the fight, but he usually ends up killing them himself like a dumbass. After poking him a few more times with your energy sword, he falls down. Being upset by this utterly pathetic display of killing his own men, the other 2 prophets activate Helios 1. Luckily for the captain, he manages to go swimming and gets rescued by a hentai monster. Back in the perspective of Arby, he sees his fellow warty boys being replaced by Team Fur Affinity. Shipmaster is understandably angered by this, but the truthful Willie tells him to shut the fuck up and he backs down. The merciful Willie then tells us that after forcing Guilty Spark to engage in forbidden homosexual acts, He then tells us that with the use of a green combat spoon, we can unlock the secrets of the golden onion ring. In the next scene, not Donkey Kong is driving Keith David to the local space IKEA, where he begins searching for the legendary combat spoon. It is here where he meets the greatest companion in all of video game history, this jackal with a carbine who I nicknamed Flippy. Like all jackals on Legendary, they hardly miss. This pair with his shield makes him pretty much unkillable. As Flippy and I proceed to decimate every sentinel the second it spawns, we make our way through the space IKEA, Flippy doing most of the work, of course. Unfortunately, the Sentinels' numbers are too great and we must run for the exit. However, in a noble and daring sacrifice, Flippy offers to stay behind and deal with the space drones. And I will never forget his last words. Unbeknownst to Arby, in the next room is a slightly larger Sentinel waiting for him. He kills it. He then takes a magic carpet ride to the next area. Not Donkey Kong once again appears in his Phantom, but runs away like a little bitch when he has to fight the exact same thing. Arby then encounters a new type of Sentinel, which I dubbed the TF2 player. I give them this name because the only difference is this gimmick of them being shiny. Much like a TF2 player who wastes hundreds of dollars on shiny hats, they're ultimately just as shit as normal players. Oh, and the Mushroom Boys are back. I also came across some humans fighting said Mushroom Boys. It didn't go very well for them. After all that stupid shit, we see some fellow warty boys, along with the man himself, who is currently engaging in an intense firefight with a shroomy lad. After such a legendary fight, he appears to be brain damaged as it takes him 30 seconds to understand the fact that I'm standing right in front of him.
Arbiter, what are you doing here?
What follows is another holdout section, but this time you have a teammate who can't take out 3 infection forms. After fighting for about 5 minutes, a phantom appears that isn't afraid of a big robot. We then catch up with Halfjaw, and after his troops do some autistic screeching, it's time to drive around in a purple warthog. While I say that, I find a tank that's normally supposed to have a flood inside shooting at you. I mean, I'm not really complaining, this makes this mission a whole lot easier. That is until we are forced to leave it behind and continue on foot. Oh wait, never mind, there's another one right here. I'm skimming over all these parts because I think it's pretty obvious that even on Legendary, tank sections are brain dead easy. After exiting the tank, Arby and Shipmaster wait in line for a magic carpet ride when they realize that Sergeant Dude and daughter of Captain Keys cut them in line. Shipmaster, in a fit of rage, heads out and beats the living shit out of the ride's operator for allowing this, as Arby continues on. Not Donkey Kong then calls Shipmaster a coward, the irony not being lost considering he's a bitch who ran away earlier. Speaking of cowards, it should be noted that a lot of people playing this section on Legendary hide underneath this platform. I, however, am not a massive vagina, so I actually played the level as it was intended. Although, I don't think this was intended. I named him Barry for those who are curious. At the end of the ride, we walk through some familiar grounds. Unfortunately, we are too late. The humans have acquired the combat spoon. Luckily, Arby understands the simple fact in life that hitting women is funny. But there is a far greater problem. Not DK and the Willy Necks have stolen the combat spoon for themselves.
The icon is my responsibility.
And you fell for that? Really? Because I'm going to have you killed now.
When the prophets learn of this, they will take your head.
You're an idiot.
The next level is Gravemind. Fuck this mission. Instead of talking about it, here's some funny shit that happened while I was playing it. Next mission, RB finds out that the apes have betrayed the Warty boys. This mission is also very boring. Next. You know, while skimming over all of these missions, I think to myself, what's Flippy been up to? Now we're at the final stretch, the Great Journey. This mission opens up with the shipmaster telling us to mount up, but instead of giving us a wraith like he does, he gives us this piece of shit. No matter, it just means I have to borrow one from a willing monkey. They probably didn't give a player the wraith at the beginning because wraith versus wraith encounters just boil down to who can mash the fire button the quickest. When that's over, we team up with some hunters along with a lone elite. They don't make good firepower, but they make excellent shields. After getting past the brute shot firing squad, we see some kind of ritual being performed by some jackals. We then make our way into a prison facility being used to hold some counselors and hunters. I kill all the enemies before freeing them. Although this makes the fight significantly harder, it's all worth it to get this shot of them all running through the hallways. Once all the brutes outside are killed, we make an unexpected friend. The equally homosexual Sergeant Dude, RB tapped the ass of in the first game. He informs RB he needs him to escort his giant allied spider to blow up the door to Not DK's room, so he can interrupt his session of Minecraft. But first, we must fight off his highly skilled and intelligent guards.
Purpose them into the chamber! The chieftain must complete his holy work! This way. Still on the run!
We then see that Not DK is just as big-brained as his minions, as he can't figure out how to use the combat spoon. He then tries to get female Captain Keys to teach him how to use it, but she's also at a loss. Guilty Spark calls him retarded, and the monkey gets very upset. RB then appears and tells Not DK the truth about the spoon. Not DK learning that it is simply just a combat sport, he becomes very mad and proceeds to throw a light bulb at Sergeant Dude. He then proceeds to fight Arby. Luckily for Arby, the monkey is very dumb and doesn't understand how elevated structures work. Being annoyed by this, Not DK calls upon his lesser monkeys to help out. Unfortunately for them, getting shot in the head hurts. Not DK then gets his fat ass stuck in a gravity lift. It seems this would have been an easy fight for Arby, but Not DK had a trick up his sleeve. He gained the ability of flight and proceeded to evade Arby's shots. Speaking of flying monkeys, I'd like to take this time to talk about today's sponsor. Flying Gorilla is an amazing action role-playing game that truly pushes mobile gaming to its absolute limit. Flying Gorilla is a slap across the face to all these ad-infested pay-to-win games. This game tells an engaging and professionally written story about how Monkey was tired of swinging from tree to tree and learned the ancient method of flight. When you play Flying Gorilla, use code MILK to unlock the Golden Gorilla along with 15 AA bananas and 5 AC diamonds. Thank you Flying Gorilla for sponsoring this video. Arby, now unable to shoot the flying monkey, is easily overpowered. The battle seems lost until out of nowhere, he returns. With one Davy Crockett, Flippy is able to defeat Not DK and save his friend. We then cut back to Chef one last time, as Not Captain Keyes asks him what he's doing on the Space Eiffel Tower, which Chef replies,
"Sir, finishing this fight."
Oh, and Mrs. Lady got left behind. Oops.
The third game begins by having Chief fall from the fucking sky, and Chief gets into a little scuffle with the Arbiter, who has one of the best one-liners ever.
Were it so easy.
After you fight through a jungle and rescue Johnson, we end up blowing up an outpost, because fuck the Covenant and their ugly faces. Don't worry about the elites because they're really cool and don't look ugly.
Yeah, look at him go! Yeah, fuck him up!
Fuck him.
Oh, let it go.
Come on, get him.
Yeah, look at him go! Beat the shit out of him! Can't even use it! Can't even...
Yeah,
no!
Can't even use it!
Come here, you piece of shit!
Anyways, the Covenant are on Earth looking for some sort of artifact, and the Chief has to clear out the anti-air defenses for Lord Hood to attack Truth's ships. The Chief is too late though, and Truth goes through some sort of portal that pops up, I guess. On top of that, a pretty suspicious looking ship crashes near our boys, and oh no, the bent penises are back. And my god, they are looking pretty fleshy this time. Please, let's go ahead and kill them because they literally shoot teeth or whatever the fuck at you. Ew. So you do all that, you go into the ship, and Chief's girlfriend apparently left a message behind warning everybody about the massive horde of bent penises coming to Earth. You see, Halo 2 had the whole thing about High Charity getting fucked by the Flood and now are going to ram it into Earth. And, yeah, that's not good. The decision is then made to follow Truth through the portal to stop him from activating the Arc. The deal here is that the Arc is capable of firing every ring, and everyone is going to get fucked if Truth's stupid Great Journey idea isn't fucked the shit up. While taking down all of Truth's pussy bitch shields, the bent penises show up again to ruin our day. But we don't want that to happen. There are more pressing matters, as Truth is definitely the bigger threat. The biggest penis agrees, and fights alongside us to put an end to Truth's bullshit. Of course, the big penis betrays us, and now we have to fuck his shit up as well. In order to do that, we need to get the onion ring key that the Chief's girlfriend still has. So the onion ring that we destroyed in the first game is apparently getting a shiny new ring, which means that the Ark is also a planetary onion ring factory. Unfortunately, we're going to have to destroy it, which sucks big pee-pee. We rescue the Chief's girlfriend, get the onion ring key, and get to the new ring's control center. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that Nut from the first game is also here, and he's not very happy about the fact that if we fire the ring off now, it would be a premature activation, thus destroying the ring again and the Ark. Johnson doesn't give a shit, and the Nut has had enough and decides to shoot a laser at our boy Johnson. We then take revenge on the Nut by shooting a laser at him and mourning the death of our boy Johnson. But there isn't much time for that, unfortunately, because the ring is going to fucking explode. We then get on Johnson's Warthog to go into the best sequence of the entire trilogy, driving the Warthog to escape to the ship that we need in order to escape.
Over here. Oh my god, I knew. No!
Hold on.
Flip it over, Corey. Oh, piece of shit! Oh my fuck. I landed on one of the frames.
When we get there, the crew scrambles to get the ship working, and Arbiter manages to pilot the ship out of there. Unfortunately, half the ship doesn't make it. Arbiter makes it back to Earth, but the Chief is left behind in the other half of the ship. Back on Earth, Hood and Arbiter have a brief but meaningful exchange, while saying the best one-liner ever, yet again.
Were it so easy.
Back in the middle of space, we have one last exchange between Chief and Cortana, which in relation to the first game, ends where it started, Chief going into cryosleep until they would be found from the distress beacon that has been dropped. What a nice ending to a cool trilogy, huh?
You have my thanks.
And then Halo 4 happened.
For standing by him to the end.
Oh.
Then Halo 4 happened, and then Halo 5 happened.
Oh.
Until Halo 4 happened, I love 343 so much. Thanks, Microsoft. Woo! I'd like to, of course, thank my dear patrons. Big thanks to Dead in the Shed, Person Who Can Do a Thing, Jibz, Fern Winters, Spoken Mind, Danny Boy, Lunar Phoenix, Tudola, B, Hateful, Riddle of Lightning, DrunkleBee, and BusyRobotHands. My god.
Score. You might want to back up, by the way. Watch this shit. No, back up far. Watch this shit. Come to where I am. Watch this shit. Adding to the pile.
Oh my